Yo, it's your boy Logos, and today I want to react to the video that I saw called Why Nobody Likes Woke Characters. This seems a very interesting video, considering the fact that as much as I love philosophy, politics, and history, I am a huge nerd. Video games, anime, cartoons, stuff like that. My earliest video games was like Super Mario on Nintendo 64, SNES, Halo, Halo 2, like etc. etc. After I do this upload, I'll probably be playing some Overwatch or Kingdom Come Deliverance. So I love video games and all types of nerd shit. And I love it when we have good storytelling and good writing because video games have the ability to be just as beautiful or important as movies. And people don't give it credit until more recently because of graphics and storytelling has improved. But when I was younger, I remember my parents giving me shit about video games and just not understanding it. And I'll try to explain like there are good stories here, there is good entertainment here. Same way you like watching your TV, that's how I like playing my video games. But nowadays they don't have the depth and content that they used to. Every now and then you'll get that like Elden Ring or Star Wars Fallen Order, but other times you'll just get bullshit like Fallout 76 or No Man's Sky before they fix it up. So let's get into this story and see what they gotta say. Oh, another example of this bullshit is Forspoken. Just because you have a black character doesn't mean I'm gonna play the game because I'm black. I'm not that simple minded.
What's up, everyone? It's Endymion, and since Star Wars Celebration, there has been a disturbance in the balance of pop culture, where millions of fans groaned in unison as Disney and Lucasfilm announced that Rey would be brought back in a new movie.
This is one of the best video game, at least story wise, that I've ever seen or played. And these trailers, I watch them at least 2 or 3 times a year. The Star Wars or Old Republic MMO trailers, fantastic storytelling, fantastic action, and just fantastic effort from the whole team. You can tell they love Star Wars and it's not just a cash grab for them. And that's why I go back to them every single year. Same thing with World of Warcraft. Trailers are excellent products over and over again.
Some may have been hyped, while many others saw this announcement as Disney unwilling to learn from their past failures, as Hollywood keeps pushing what fans reject, and it begs the question, why does nobody seem to like these identity politically driven or woke characters? Let's talk about it. What rubs many the wrong way about Rey isn't that she's a woman, although I'm sure there are those out there who hate her simply for that, but I'm not one of them. The real reason why I particularly dislike the character and this announcement of her making a new Jedi Order is that Rey is essentially assuming the role that Luke should have had instead. Unfortunately,
Exactly.
Disney made Luke into a bumbling hobo who drinks alien milk and tries to kill his nephew, and to really put the
Sick.
nail in the coffin, they also killed off Luke as well. All the
Oh
expanded
yeah,
universe lore
don't
surrounding
forget
Luke
that.
could now, in retrospect, not be used since the legacy of the character was finished. But the sad truth is that Lucasfilm and Disney found a way to remove Luke from the story and replace his legacy with a younger character instead. When it comes to a lot of new age media, there's been quite a few characters created that could be considered self-inserts of their creators. A good example of this is Mariko Tamaki, who's the author of the YA graphic novel I Am Not Starfire, where the beautiful supermodel Starfire has a fat daughter that looks more like the Penguin than being
Oh,
related to Starfire herself. Her daughter, whose name is Mandy, also looks strikingly similar to her creator, which many, as you'd expect, have pointed out. Then of
that's
course
weird.
you have Velma and Mindy Kaling, which I don't need to explain.
You
Of
don't.
course, self-inserts are nothing new when it comes to media, as it's likely impossible for a creator to not in some way insert parts of themselves into the very characters they create. A good example of this would be Peter Parker, as a lot like one of his creators, Steve Ditko. But the difference between someone like Peter and Mandy is that Peter actually became something that stood the test of time and grew and expanded and built their own legacy.
And Peter Parker is relatable. He isn't some. Well, that's the thing too. Tony Stark is a cool character because he's flawed. Peter is also flawed. He isn't perfect. He messes up. He lost his Uncle Ben. I'm pretty sure he loses his grandma in certain stories. We already know what happened in Gwen Stacy, how he couldn't save her, and the whole thing with Green Goblin. Like Peter, Peter Parker goes through so much shit, but he still gets up every single fucking time and puts on the mask and goes out there to help people. That's why people love him. It's the same thing like Ahsoka. That's the thing. This isn't about females or woman. This is about written characters. I hated Ahsoka when she was first introduced in 2008 in the Clone Wars movie. But as I watch the show, I loved Ahsoka. She is one of my top 3 or top 5 favorite characters. People try to say Anakin Skywalker is a Mary Sue. He is the opposite of a Mary Sue. He was a slave. He lost his mother. He lost his arm. He lost his wife. He lost his child. And he lost his freedom and his sanity and became Darth Vader, and then he lost his life. None of that stuff is him being all powerful or not messing up or anything like that. That's the difference. Make complex characters that sometimes I don't want to cheer for them, but I still do because I understand they're human, just like me. That's what I want. I don't care about the age, race, gender, none of that shit. Make a good character. Excuse me.
Where likely until I mentioned Mandy in this video, you probably haven't even thought of or knew that character even existed. To swing back to Star Wars again, Rey feels like a self-insert, but in the worst way possible. In fact, I wouldn't be surprised if Rey was a self-insert of Star Wars' biggest villain herself, Kathleen Kennedy.
I knew it.
A woman who's so hated by the fan base that even during Star Wars Celebration, many didn't clap or woo her as she went on stage.
Lucasfilm, Kathleen Kennedy!
Because the damage she has done to the brand and Disney at large at this point is stained by her diluted touch. Rey is a terrible self-insert character because she doesn't add nothing to the story she's in. She is simply Luke Skywalker but a woman, but without any of the problems or weaknesses.
Exactly.
Instead, she's capable of doing anything and everything herself, even breaking out of prison in Force Awakens on her own, even though she's only known how to use the Force for maybe 5 minutes at this point.
Somehow she can cut through Snoke's Imperial Guard or his guard, his most best trained fighters. Because think about it, you're not going to have your best trained fighters out on the front line all the time. Either going to be a crack force or they're going to defend the most important person in the Empire. And somehow, some way, Rey was just able to just cut through him with the help of Kylo Ren. The fight scene was just awful in of itself. I can't remember the guy's name, even though I watch a lot of his stuff, but there's a guy who does like fight choreography breakdowns, especially history related ones, and he broke down this whole fight between the throne room with Rey and Kylo Ren against Snoke's like Imperial Guard, and it was just awful. But it doesn't make sense for her to beat him in the first place.
Rey is the ultimate bad character because of this, and I honestly feel bad for Daisy Ridley because she's just doing what she's told by the writers, directors, and producers who employ her. There was something there in Awakens, a glimmer that she could have been a great character, but this potential was sadly wasted. And then it was exemplified when she was not only assuming the role that was originally Luke's, she also took his last name too. Rey and her self-inserted creator Kathleen Kennedy are the worst thing to happen to Star Wars since its creation. Many could argue that the reason why fans are so against Rey is because she's a new character and nobody wants new stuff, they just want what they liked before. But this is clearly not true since we have had plenty of characters made in the years before and since that disprove this. Starkiller, for example, was a character people really liked, and the Force...
Do a movie on him. Like, the fight scenes, the story, everything would be so good. And we could see Darth Vader closer to his prime. Stop this BS that they're putting out now where we have the Mandalorian where it's not as good as it started out as. The one good show they have now, nobody watches it because people are tired of Disney. And that's Andor. But do a Starkiller show, man. This is, or at least remaster the games because those were some beautiful games.
Unleashed, when it came out, became the best-selling Star Wars game ever at the time, even outpacing KOTOR. Grogu is another great addition, and so is Din Djarin, but people clearly don't like when they're sold something as one thing, but get subverted into experiencing something that they don't want. The Mandalorian recently has largely replaced Din and Grogu with Bo-Katan, and even the producers of the show say anyone can now be the Mandalorian.
We've been on the journey of the show, and now that we're at this point, is that what does that title mean? And I think now with Bo possessing the Darksaber, I know that there was a lot of expectations that might have shifted both in terms of what it meant for Disney Djarin, but also for Bo, and what does it mean? Who is the Mandalorian, right, at this point? And so I think it could be anyone, and I think that's what they're trying to define in many ways, is what does that mean to be Mandalorian?
It's in the third season, I think, and they're trying to switch up the show or the main character now after we've gone through this long journey with this original Mandalorian. If you want to have our own show about Bo-Katan, just do our own show and have good writing behind it. But stop doing this BS where you're switching back and forth, and either way, us as an audience is losing out on good character writing. Nobody is a fan of that. You had a good character and then you decide to screw it up because, I don't know, y'all care more about politics or something than making a good product. You're not politicians. You're entertainment companies. Do your damn job.
We want our Space Dad and Goblin Son story, and even though the show was marketed as such, once you watch it, the duo are sidelined for other characters. It's not even that Bo is a bad character, it's just that no one is watching the show for her when we've been invested in Din and Grogu.
Exactly.
If I can put this into an analogy for you, switching out Bo for the duo is like going to a steakhouse and having the advertisements promoted as a place for barbecued beef. But when you enter, the menu actually has no steak on it, and instead everything is replaced with fish. And then you're being called an idiot or an anti-fish eater because you went to the steakhouse expecting steak. But now everyone who works there hates you because you don't want what they're selling, and that's how all of this feels. We wanted steak and potatoes, but you're feeding us halibut and soy milk. The fan base has every right to be disappointed about this kind of stuff. It's not to say that you can't have good characters that are people of color or women, as one of my favorite characters of the past decade and then some is Agent 355 from Y: The Last Man. She's an incredibly badass special agent whose sole purpose is to protect the last remaining man on Earth. Her determination and willingness to see her mission through is not only filled with comedy, but horrible tragedy as well. 355 is an amazing character who's also black and a woman, and she's also believable and fits perfectly into the world of Y: The Last Man. Another character I really love is from a comic called Punk Rock Jesus, where a company revives Jesus through strands of DNA and makes a reality show out of the second coming of Christ for television ratings. This second Jesus is protected by a capable and deeply troubled man named Thomas McKeel. Thomas is a badass bodyguard whose nickname is because of all the crosses on his back he has tattooed signifying all the people he's killed. Punk Rock Jesus is also just a damn fine limited series, and I strongly recommend it if you haven't read it. But the point stands that good original characters do still exist out there in the wider world, but unfortunately, when it comes to mainstream companies like Marvel for example, they can't help but keep pushing these terrible woke ideas instead. A good example of this is Deadpool, who in a recent issue has begun dating Valentine Vuong, an assassin who was originally an enemy of Wade's. While this all may seem fine, the more I dug in, the more obvious and self-inserting it became. You see, it would be one thing to announce that Deadpool has a new girlfriend, except whenever you read an article about this, the selling point is that this new character is non-binary.
I knew it.
And I had a creeping suspicion, so of course I dived in deeper, and the writer of this Deadpool series is Alyssa Wong, who of course is also non-binary. Meaning this series is just a fanfic where the writer has self-inserted a non-binary Vietnamese character who is very specifically just like their creator and wrote it so that they can bang Deadpool. It's Tumblr levels of cringe, but this is how things are now.
And I can see this shit too, because if you go on Twitter, which I try to avoid at all costs, you'll have these weirdos sometimes in the My Hero Academia spoiler section talking about Deku and Bakugo being a couple or like trying to pair them up together like relationship goals. I'm like, what the fuck are y'all talking about? These are 14, 15-year-old boys who are clearly nothing more than best friends and rivals. And it's been shown as nothing but that. But these weirdos want to call it evidence of a gay relationship brewing. I don't know, just weirdo shit to me.
Thankfully, there has been good characters that are also diverse, but unfortunately, I do wish there were more that were given proper respect and real characterization. Aya and Bayek from Assassin's Creed are some of my favorite characters in that franchise, and they are both not only diverse, but extremely integral to their franchise and fans love them. Another miss by the modern comics industry was Jonathan Kent, who became the new Superman. Except his only defining characteristic wasn't his heroism, legacy, or villains, but simply that he was bisexual. And
What
having
the
the new
fuck? Am I okay? Because I might have him crossed with another character, but Super Sons, that was Superman and Batman's kids. And I don't know why I'm losing the name of Bruce Wayne's son, but Clark Kent's son with Jonathan Wayne for my memory. At what point and what evidence did they ever show where he would be gay or bisexual? I don't remember that at all. Correct me if I'm wrong, but did he have something to do with Crisis on Infinite Earths? I don't know. It just seemed like more random BS to me just to, I don't know, fill in a checkbox or fill in the category. This stuff isn't necessary. And once again, having them being black, gay, male or female doesn't mean they're a good character. Just write the character to be complex and have cool powers. Come on. Like, my favorite superhero is Superman. I know, generic. But I like his power set, I like his moves, and I like what he stands for. Like, that's it. That's all it takes for me.
Superman Be Bi did little in the long run, with the series being cancelled because, like many of these woke characters, their identities are surface level at best. And I know some people will say that it's odd that I'm against gay Superman or self-insert non-binary Deadpool love interest, but I'm totally fine with Peter Parker looking like Steve Ditko. Why Peter Parker works where so many of these woke failures don't is because when it comes to characters like Spider-Man, he's so much more than just his sexuality or skin color.
Exactly.
Peter is a young man whose life gets changed by the spider bite. He loses his uncle because of his own hubris.
Thank you.
And while he has the riz of a literal god, Peter also suffers immensely.
Oh yeah, look at my boy.
And while he
you got it. All of them just lined up, bat to bat to bat. Yo, boy, he be swimming in that pussy.
Has the riz of a literal god, Peter also suffers immensely, but never lets it bring him down and inspires those around him.
Exactly.
When I think of someone like Peter, I think of his characteristics as heroic, selfless, loving, and strong. He's a character many people can see themselves in regardless of gender, skin color, or whatever else.
Same with Superman, in my opinion. Like, I think Peter Parker, he has the same exact type of ethic too. Like, he never goes full out. He never tries to kill people. He knows he got the possibility of just punching through people all the time, especially with the criminals and stuff that he beats up. But he always holds back because he just wants to stop the crime. Same with Superman. He doesn't kill. It's just not stuff that he wants to do. He has the ability to wipe out a whole planet, but he chooses to save individual murderers or rapists or killers and stuff like that. It's crazy. But that's the type of person that I like because of his values and what he stands for. It's bigger than his color or his gender.
It's the same with Agent 355. I think of her as adaptive, strong-willed, and incredibly badass. Her being black or a woman doesn't matter because at her core, she's a strong character. But when I look at Jonathan Kent, the only quality he has is that he's bisexual. That's all any of these new age characters are now. They are simply created for diversity checkpoints so websites will write articles about them. But the reality is that these controversies usually never translate to true long-standing sales, and it proves that consumers want their characters to be defined more besides what's in their pants or whose pants they want in.